What is the best race for a shaman in World of Warcraft? Is it the race with the most iconic hero? The one with the deepest lore? Or is it just the one with the coolest looking totem? Hey everyone, Carnavius here, and welcome back to the series where we break down the best race and class combinations in Azeroth. Today, we're tackling the Master of the Elements and the spiritual guide of the Horde and Alliance, the Shaman.
Storm, earth, and fire, heed my call.
Now, a quick note on my criteria for this video. My new rule is that we're going to group together a core race and its allied race into one archetype only if both races share a strong and thematic and or historical connection. The idea with this is to reduce overlap and honestly just make the video a bit better to watch. So if you guys like it, let me know, because you know, when we start moving into the warriors and mages of the world, there's going to be about 17 races or so. So I want to keep the videos a nice watchable length and not have too many segments in one video. So this is kind of a pilot for that. Only after we looked at all the contenders will I reveal the final tier list at the end. So stick around to see where your favorite lands. Let's get started. First up in our analysis, the Darkspear Troll. This is one of the most tragic stories on the list. The idea of Darkspear Troll shamans are S tier. You know, you have a vibe of kind of the witch doctor fantasy, primal, spiritual, and tied to the Loa. The lore is fantastic, but when your main shamanistic character is an amalgamation of 3 classes, it's hard to say the prominent character, who I'd argue Vol'jin, really applies. But overall, this is a race that has been completely abandoned by modern game design when you look at their totems. You could even argue that these totems are as bad or worse than the Dwarves. They are literally painted sticks. It's a classic race with great lore that is a complete visual failure in my opinion. Next up, the Draenei. This is the one hero race. Their entire shaman fantasy is propped up by the legend of Farseer Nabundo, who heard the elements when the light abandoned him. In my opinion, it makes a great score for a prominent character, but the rest of the fantasy is a bit of a mixed bag. The lore was famously retconned in, and the holy space goat aesthetic clashes with the primal class for many players. I'll also say that the crystal totems are unique, and I'm glad that they got updated, but overall I think they're just okay. A solid, but in my opinion, not a spectacular choice. Next up, the dwarf archetype. This is a philosophical choice, as you have 2 options that are kind of polar opposites in my opinion. You can go with a classic dwarf for the S tier idea of being a wildhammer stormcaller. Especially now with the new customization options, you can really get this look. You can really achieve it. But in my opinion, you are tragically portrayed by the worst totems in the entire game. I can hear an argument for the Tauren totems as well, you know, because they're like outdated logs. But in my opinion, the Tauren totems are still a bit more iconic than the Wildhammer ones. That's just, again, this is my opinion. Maybe you have a bit of a different one, feel free to leave it below. And, you know, you look at how strong the core fantasy of being a Wildhammer Stormcaller is, and it's just a complete contrast with how kind of tiny and plain the totems are, and it's just, I would say it's an insult to the fantasy overall. Or option B, you can go with a Dark Iron Dwarf, which, in my opinion, is greatly executed. You get a great fiery drill totem, and a strong dark shaman fantasy. You know, they were the ones who called up Ragnaros. But you can argue that their lore is a bit niche, you know, focus on subjugating elements and not revering them. So overall, it's your pick. Are you gonna have the best fantasy, or are you gonna have the better totem option? You know, that's something that you have to debate if you want to go with a dwarf. In my opinion, you know, it does create a bit of a dichotomy. Now for one of our newer allied races, the Earthen. This is the safe choice, in my opinion. The lore makes perfect sense. A race literally made of stone being in tune with elements. Like, yep, that makes sense. Their stone-carved totems have a great look, and they fit the theme perfectly. But the archetype has no prominent characters, and the overall fantasy is solid, but unexciting in my opinion. It's a perfectly average, safe pick, and in my opinion, the definition of C tier. Then we have the Goblin.
Cha-ching!
This is kind of a joke choice. The fantasy is coherent, but it's not a strong classic one. Goblins don't ask the elements for their cooperation or for their assistance. They make contracts and deals with them.
Just one thing. If you could sign this contract.
Do I still get the elemental power?
Of course.
That'll be fine then. Here you go. Now, gimme.
It's purely transactional. Their totems are unique and they fit the theme. Like literally drilling the earth for elements. That's pretty funny in my opinion. But again, the overall fantasy is weak when you really consider the overall shamanistic theme. And to my knowledge, they really have 0 character representation of any prominence. And the new upcoming race in Midnight, the Haranir. This is a case of A tier looks and currently C tier substance. The primal wild elf is incredible. Like, yes, it totally makes sense that they'd be in tune with the elements of the earth. And, you know, that lore as being a deep jungle guardian, it fits. But it's like how much are they going to build upon this? And even just look at these new totems. The tusk and root kind of aesthetic is amazing, but it's critically hamstrung by having zero named shaman characters as of yet. I hope to see growth in this area in the future.
We will watch your career with great interest.
Right now, in my opinion, it's a B tier shaman race with massive A tier potential for the future. So we'll see. Moving on to the Culturian. This is simply put a masterpiece of modern race class design. The whole Tide Sage fantasy is so unique and so welcome.
It was perfect. Perfect. Everything, down to the last minute details.
The nautical lore is deep, unique, and compelling. Brother Pike is a solid, memorable character. The Anchor and Barnacle totems are top tier in my opinion, and the overall Storm and Sea fantasy is perfectly cohesive. It's the only alliance race in the game for Shaman that have no weak spots in my opinion. I would hear a case though if you'd want to see a bit more for prominent characters, but you know, being a newer race, I think that this is one of the more solidly established fantasy. And now we've come to the Orc archetype. This is the undeniable S tier of legacy, fantasy, and just overall being a shaman. It's impossible to tell the story of the shaman class without them. Their lore is the shaman story. They're anchored by Thrall, the most important powerful shaman in Warcraft history. And then you have great characters like Drekthar and Nurzul who turned evil. They have the best characters, full stop. And just like our other archetypes, this forces you to choose your flavor. Do you go with a classic Green Orc to embrace Thrall's story of redemption from fell corruption? If you go down this route, you get the S tier lore and character. But you must accept the trade-off. Their totems are horribly dated and among the worst in the game. It's just that simple.
A small price to pay for salvation.
Or you can choose the Magar Orc, which is the S tier visual package. You embody the primal, uncorrupted fantasy, and you get their great totems. No other race has this combination of S tier lore, S tier characters, and A tier visual option, in my opinion. And now we have the Pandaren. Look, someone has to be at the bottom.
Is mayonnaise
Is an element?
No, Patrick, mayonnaise is not an element.
The Pandaren get the worst score for overall fantasy, and the worst score for prominent characters. Their jokey lore is... and the keg totems aren't nearly good enough to save this. It's, in my opinion, the undisputed bottom of the proverbial keg, aka bottom of the barrel. Next, the Torn archetype, spiritual heart of the Horde. This is an AZ E tier. You know, you have the whole core fantasy of the Earth Mother. That lore is fantastic. And they're anchored by the legendary Magatha Grim Totem and Moln Earth Fury. Like the Orcs, you just have to pick your flavor. Go for the classic Tauren for the legacy, but you have to accept the dated, low-res, tree stump totems. Or you can go with the High Mountain Tauren, which is a clear modern visual upgrade with massive, beautiful antlered totems. Now for the Volpera. This is definition of C tier in my opinion, all style, no substance. Let's be clear, the Volpera have the single best totems in the game. They're awesome. I really love them. They're high resolution, they have a unique aesthetic, and they fit the scavenger theme perfectly. Even though I would say they have some of the worst shaman lore in the game, because literally they have none. Like, I don't even know how that's possible. Like, you literally even have your racial leader who's a shaman, but the fantasy still feels hollow. So even though that they do have kind of a bit of a prominent character who is a shaman, and they have such great totems, that's really what's saving them from D tier. But yeah, that's the Volpera. And finally, the Zandalari Troll. Where the Darkspear fails on execution, the Zandalari succeed.
Upgrades, people, upgrades!
This is the regal prelate fantasy. Their shamanism is also tied to Loa, like the Darkspears, but with the backing of the Golden Empire. Their lore is solid, and their unique Golden Dinosaurs themed totems are good. It is a very strong, cohesive, and visually impressive package that lands it squarely in the good but not great category. Alright, we've broken them all down. We've seen the good, the bad, the ugly. It's time to put it all together. Here is the final shaman race tier list. F tier, at the very bottom, we have the Pandaren. Enough said.
Enough said.
In the D tier, we have the Goblin. It's a joke choice, like, you know, it's a funny concept, but this isn't a serious contender. Our C tier is kind of like the mixed bag. You know, it's not perfect. There's some strong point that's keeping it up from D and F tier, but, you know, it's still lacking. First on this, we have the Darkspear Trolls. Look, I wanted to place them higher. I plan on making a Troll Shaman once the Midnight customizations for like the Amani options are out. But with them not having a true Shaman character, I'm sorry, Vol'jin, you're cool. One of my favorite characters, but you're like 3 classes. And with them having a desperate need for an upgraded totem from a visual standpoint, this is where you end up. Also, we have the Earthern, who are just fine, but they are just needing more lore and character significance. And the Volpera, who have S tier totems and F tier lore, just kind of average. In B tier, this is kind of what I would describe as the compromise races. You know, you're lacking something, but overall it's a good package. So mainly right here, I'm looking at the Haranir and the Draenei. The Haranir, they have A tier looks, but they're just waiting for the lore to be developed, so it's not their own fault. It's just a matter of time, and if Blizzard chooses to explore it. And they definitely look like they should have a solid connection with the elements and the world as a whole, though. And then with Draenei, they're propped up entirely by Farseer and Abundo. Like, we want more. We want more Draenei, Shaman exploration, and honestly, I want the ability to make a broken Draenei. So, Blizzard, how is that not an allied race by now? You giving us how many elves? Just saying. How many dwarves? Just saying. Finally, the last race we have in B tier, aka our compromise race, is the Zandalari Troll. The Zandalari are truly a solid B tier. They have good lore, great totems, but as a theme with the trolls, we're looking for a solid troll shaman. Where are they at? In the A tier, we have our Tauren and Dwarf archetypes. With the Tauren, one of them being the spiritual hearts of the Shaman class, A tier lore, A tier fantasy, and a clear best choice with a high mount option, in my opinion, with those new totems. Overall, they're a phenomenal pick. Again, I realize that we're grouping races together here, but it feels like the intention is to allow their ancestral history to build off one another to an extent. And kind of same thing here with the Dwarves as well. With the Dwarves, I feel like they basically, overall, both of them offer a good package, but you're either going to pick between the best lore option for the dwarves, or going to choose for the best totem option for the dwarves. So there's that. And that brings us to the top. The S tier is a shared throne today. We have two kings representing two different kinds of greatness. The Coltiran, the S tier of flawless execution, modern class and race fantasy design. It's a unique modern fantasy, basically no weak points in my opinion. And then next you have, of course, how could we not have them here? The Orc archetype. They are the S tier of what being a shaman is. They of legacy, of just classic shaman goodness. They have the undisputed best lore and the best character in the class. Thrall. You do have the choice of picking Magar for the S tier visuals, especially with the totems, plus the lack of demonic corruption, which I can see is nice to play into with the shamanistic fantasy. And in my opinion, you get the perfect combination. So there you have it, my complete critical breakdown and ranking of the shaman races. What does your list look like? Do you think Volpera's S tier totem shift carried them up higher? Or do you think that it's not enough to justify even being in C tier? Let me know in the comments below. I read and I try to reply to every single one of them. Also, let me know what class you want me to evaluate next. The most frequent or like suggestion will be the one we cover next time. It's at this time I'd like to shout out Gabe Ludwig for commenting Shaman. It was the most liked comment, and that's why we made this video. So shout out Gabe Ludwig. And if you end up with the next like comment, I'll shout you out too. So please feel free to comment on who you want to see next. And overall, if you like this breakdown, please consider leaving a like. And if you enjoy my videos, please do consider subscribing. I really do try to provide a quality product for you guys and try to really give you something that's worth watching and can be enjoyable. So thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one. This is Carnabius signing out. Hope you guys are having a great day. Peace.